Our land can be healed. It can absolutely be healed, but we've got to humble ourselves before God. And humbleness always leads to gentleness. Gentleness. Well, that wouldn't be the most American word, would it? Gentleness. But it's a Bible word. It's a spirit word. Galatians 5 said it's one of the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit is gentleness. And humility always leads to gentleness. Ephesians 4, verse 1 and 2 said, lead a life worthy of your calling. For you have been called by God. Listen to that. Listen to every believer in this room. You have been called by God. And he says, lead a life worthy of your calling because you've been called by God. Always be humble and gentle. Always be humble and gentle. Humbleness and gentleness always work hand in hand. You cannot truly be humble before God and before your fellow man without gentleness coming into play. Now here's why this is so important for us to recognize as we unpack this promise together, because we want our land healed. It's so important because the Bible warns us that one of the things that will be indicative of these last days that you and I are occupying is the wrath of man. That there would be a spirit of wrath, and you can find this in 2 Timothy chapter 3, but the Bible warns us about a spirit of wrath that would be upon the world in the very last days. And if you can't recognize that right now our world is reeling under a spirit of wrath, you're not paying attention. There is a spirit of wrath, a spirit of outrage that kind of personifies the moment that we're in. And here's what's interesting. Proverbs 15 verse 1 says that a gentle answer turns away wrath. How can we take wrath and turn it away so that it moves out of our city instead of settling into our city? How do we turn wrath away? How do we see wrath coming down the I-10 corridor and go, no, not in Acadiana. Not in Acadiana. Because this is my watch and I have humbled myself before God and I'm going to turn wrath away from this area that I have responsibility for. Come on, church. How do we do it? We do it through a gentle answer. We do it through posturing ourselves in gentleness. The truth is, and we all recognize this, social media has given a platform to everyone's outrage. And we're bombarded with it day in and day out. And it's no real new thing. It's no real new thing. In fact, blame shifting has been going on since the Garden of Eden. When man first sinned, God put mankind in a garden of perfection. There was just one tree that they had to stay away from. And of course, they sinned against God. And the moment God called them on their sin, what did they do? Adam goes, it's the woman's fault. Eve goes, it's the serpent's fault. And we've been blame shifting ever since. What does social media read like right now? Her fault, his fault, their fault. Right? Never, ever. Well, might be my fault. Let me humble myself. Let me let a gentle answer turn away the wrath and the outrage through the power of gentleness. Gentleness turns righteous anger, because there is such a thing as righteous anger. There are some things we should be angry about right now. But here's what gentleness does. Gentleness turns righteous anger towards problems, not people. Sinful anger does the opposite. It attacks people. Don't you remember what Paul taught us in the New Testament? Our fight is not with one another. Our fight is not with flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness of this world. So we turn righteous anger towards the problems, not towards people. We are gentle with people. Here's the formula for gentleness. It's found right there in the book of James. Here's the formula for gentleness. Slow to speak, or slow to speak and quick to listen. That's what James said we should be. Slow to speak. And quick to listen. And we are so much the opposite. We're so quick to spout off. We're so quick, aren't we? We're so quick to condemn one another. We're so quick to speak our minds on things we don't even know anything about. But I got an opinion and I'm going to share it. Slow to speak, quick to listen. When's the last time we really listened to one another? Instead of immediately pushing back and going, I have no responsibility in this. When's the last time we just leaned in and we listened to? The healing of the land is going to happen when God's people get quick to listen and slow to speak instead of the opposite.